fucking bitch! Get a grip on yourself!
I want to go home.
We can do that.
You should listen to your mother. You say the truth. We are friends. Dead by dawn.
Can't hang on your boyfriend, baby.
Excelsior! Happy New Year, Harbor Fiends! It's your boy, Ricky Grimes. We are back with Volume 2, Issue 1 of the Comic Book Horrorshow. I am glad you guys enjoy this series, as do we. And I am here with my partner in crime, my beer brother, Joe the Psychologist. What up, Joe? How are you, bro?
I'm good. It's unfortunately I'm doing water again today, but salute. For the salute. There you go.
Hey, yeah, perfect, yeah.
But dude, I'm good. Honestly, we decided we're gonna put this on here. I'm gonna legit say I slept on this when it first released. And I think we started doing the three corners, and I think 2 years had already come out, and JR was the one telling us about this. And then we finally checked it out, and it was literally it's a series like, and we're texting each other, and you passed me. That's how good it is. Like you sit here.
I'm always late to the game, but somehow I make it past everybody, bro.
I know.
Once I start, I can't stop.
I'm sitting here like I'm on this episode. All of a sudden, like, oh yeah, I'm already on this one. I'm like, son of a bitch, now he's gonna pass me.
All right, well, he said it. Episode, we're going to be discussing a television series based on a DC Comics property. What that is? Take a look. Doom Patrol was first published in My Greatest Adventure number 80 in June of 1963. The group would go through many different roster members, but it was writer Grant Morrison that would revitalize the franchise into the modern era. With a varied roster of superpowered misfits led by Dr. Niles Caulder, the Chief, a brilliant and esoteric scientist responsible for gifting these individuals with more than just superpowers. Robot Man, the only member to appear in each version of the team, was once Cliff Steele, race car driver and proud dad, until a bad crash forced his brain to be forever entombed in a clunky robot body. Elastigirl, Rita Farr, a once cherished film actress whose life would be eternally altered after being exposed to a volcanic gas while shooting a film in Africa, gaining unusual rubber powers causing her extreme trauma and insecurities. Larry Trainer, aka Negative Man, a pilot who unwittingly would speed through a radioactive field in the atmosphere during a test flight, causing Larry to become permanently radioactive and forced to wear special bandages so others around him aren't exposed. Crazy Jane, who first appeared under Morrison in Doom Patrol Volume 2, Issue 19 in February of 1989, is a character diagnosed with DID after severe childhood trauma and is home to 64 alters living inside her mind, the Underground, each having their own unique superpower. And finally, Cyborg, Victor Stone, a promising high school football star whose entire mangled body was put back together using advanced cybernetics and weaponry after a devastating car accident that also claimed his mother's life. Together, under Niles Caulder, the Doom Patrol would unite to defeat various unusual enemies while trying to keep themselves together, both mentally and physically. This is the horrors of Doom Patrol. And there you have it, Harbor Fiends. Welcome to Volume 2, Issue 1. We will be discussing Doom Patrol, the Max series, which debuted in 2019 and just ended in 2023. The series stars Diane Guerrero as Crazy Jane, April Bowlby as Rita Farr, Elastigirl, Matt Bomer as Larry Trainer, Negative Man, Brendan Fraser as Cliff Steele, Robot Man, Jovan Wade as Victor Stone, Cyborg, also starring Pierce Bronsan as Dr. Niles Coulder, aka Chief, and Michelle Gomez as Madame Rouge. Also, a big shout out to Riley Shanahan and Matthew Zuck, who played Mr. Negative and Robot Man respectively. Not their voices, they're the guys wearing the actual suits and bandages and shit, so you gotta give those guys props too, because they did all the physical work, you know what I'm saying? So what up, Joe? This is a series, man. You got me into it, you and JR. And man, I couldn't stop watching this when you brought it up. And when you told us to cover this for the channel, I'm thinking to myself, really? Doom Patrol? But then I thought to myself, nah, you know what?
This is horror.
Yeah, this
is horror.
Pure horror.
Like
bro.
while I was messaging you, I'm like, dude, like there's some of this stuff, but so I collected series. I had again, if you guys watch this many times, I've said I lost all these comics in the damn hurricane when the basement got flooded. But I had Doom Patrol. I had this run. So, and it was done by Grant Morrison, which is what the series is mostly based on. Once he took over, because the likes of them before treated them like a superhero team. But so they came out, right? I want to say they were before the X-Men. So this was the blueprint for the X-Men, if I am correct. And I did think they were also kind of saying how they were copying the Fantastic Four. So don't quote me on that if it's right. However, I think Doom Patrol was first. Then you had the X-Men, you know, quirky individuals, their leader in a wheelchair. You know, the resemblance is there.
So Niles predated Professor Xavier.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
So
see, I'm a little aware of the book. I never read it, like on a personal level. I was always aware of it, so the timelines don't add up to me. But not saying you're wrong. What I mean is I don't have as much knowledge into the backstories as you do, as far as the history of the actual book. So
the books, yeah.
Grant Morrison was definitely not around before the X-Men. So
no.
When you say Grant Morrison, just to clear up for the viewers, so he reinvented the team as we know it now.
Them. Yes.
Okay.
Grant Morrison took over, and he gave it more of a horror spin to it. There was more supernatural, more cult. He introduced Willoughby Kipling, Crazy Jane. Dorothy Spinner was created right beforehand. I'm jumping because there's so much that I want to say. But Dorothy Spinner was introduced before Grant Morrison took over. But he also reinvented the character itself. But it was a lot horror, and you got to see that in here. And for example, when the Doom Patrol go meet the old Doom Patrol who have been living this life still looking young, and it turns out they're not. You know, they've been catatonic after they lost to Mr. Nobody. But Mento, using his powers, he psychologically fucked with them and put him, especially Jane. Jane was the one that he gave her like the biggest nightmare sequence when he was basically tormenting them. So you're watching that. It's not like the comic book series that we see now is just your usual, you know, run of the mill fighting the good guy and bad guy. The Doom Patrol dealt and basically manipulated all of their flaws and used it against them in a lot of times. But that's how their characters grew and developed by the end of the series, each of them, you know, finding their strengths. The Candlemaker, again, used your weaknesses against you. So there was a lot of psychological horror. I'm going to leave the zombie, you know, you're the resident zombie person. So I know that that's something you'll touch upon.
Zombie Patrol.
As far as, you know, trying to explain to you guys why this series is a horror comic book series.
Not just that, though. Episodes like the Zombie Patrol, for example, is what makes this series so good. One, it doesn't take itself serious. but
No.
it is a serious show underneath as far as the topics that are being discussed.
Yeah.
But they go ahead and do episodes like that where it's just super campy and silly, and it's just done very well, and that's what makes it really fucking stand out from everything else that's out there right now. The horror in Doom Patrol is the torment our main characters are going through inside. This is not a superhero story. Evident by the last couple seasons, especially impacted by the budget cuts, which clearly were there because they didn't rely much on a superhero battle, but it was more of a character study. These characters dealt with trauma, mental illness, acceptance, loneliness, depression, all types of ailments that we go through.
Yep.
And these characters are super flawed in that sense. Like Robot Man keeps talking about he's this big asshole, and guess what? He is. But you know what? I could be an asshole. You could be everyone's an asshole at some point in their life because nobody's perfect. And I think this cast of characters takes that and amplifies it to the point where it's not about superheroes anymore. It's about the real world. And guess what, man? Real world is a fucking horror story, man. The shit we go through on a daily basis. Like Rita, for example, is such a horrific character. And her backstory, very sad. Her powers, while fantastic, are really dark. And what they put her through.
Yeah.
And the fact that she can't always control them. And when she gets like too, anxious or nervous or whatever, she just turns into like once I
Blob.
saw the scene where she just turned into like a puddle of just goo, and the way she suffered and the way it tormented her, and it was agonizing. That's when I said to myself, and this was the first episode or two, this is a horror story. And this is before we talked about that. I'm like, I think I texted you right away, dude, this is pure horror, man. What the hell? It adds an additional layer of horror to an already dark show. Nobody is more tormented, in my opinion, than Cliff. This is a guy who never could catch a break, right? He's a man trapped inside of a metal shell. No connections to his senses anymore. It's like he's in his personal tomb. Same can be said for Larry. This is a guy that can't eat or drink, has to be bandaged up around people because he's so radioactive that just being around him can kill you. So he's forced to be bandaged up 24/7
in a room for him to take that off.
And he's got to be by himself to yes. Again, and when I mentioned acceptance, and this is a character that was married before this. He had a secret relationship with another man, and all of a sudden it comes into play where this guy's like, not only is he like dealing with the issue that he's fucked up, he's burnt up to a crisp essentially, and Keeg is the negative energy. What is he, like a spirit that keeps keeping him alive?
Keeg was the second one.
Right.
I can't. There was two spirits because they and I can't remember. I want to say it was in season 2 that the spirit and Larry separated.
Yep.
And then Larry gave birth.
He gave birth.
King.
That was weird. Again, very weird. Yes.
Rita, like you said, when she turned to the blob, when the studio exec, she wanted a part, and he told her to sit on his lap, and she didn't want to do it, but she did. And the more upset she got, she became a blob and suffocated him.
She couldn't control it. And even towards the end of the series, she still got to the point where she got too overwhelmed and too stressed out. She definitely blobbed out, and they're not glorifying it either. It's not like Mr. Fantastic, for example, or like what's that guy, the DC character, Plastic Man,
Plastic Man, or the one you make fun of it because I can't. It's elongated.
No, elongated man.
Elongated.
I got it. Elongated man. They don't glorify those powers like that. You know what I'm saying?
No.
They make those powers of being like rubber and plastic. They make that shit. They make it. It's so the trauma that's involved with going through what like Rita goes through, where she could just turn into just a pile of goo. Just going by that haunting opening, that tells you it's a horror. Just the music, right? The way it's composed, and it shows you each character. Like when they show Cliff being built, for example, and it's all subtle images like the brain and the eye turning on, just all the surgical equipment by it. I see Rita in the bathtub with the martini glass, her hands just melting. It's like
And her leg too.
her like creepy stuff, man. It's something that if you going in here thinking it's gonna be like watching, Miss Marvel or WandaVision or something. No,
Mm-mm.
these characters are flawed. They're again, they're always not good people either. But again, that makes them human. You know what I'm saying? So I love it. Good stuff. It's
Yeah.
to answer that question, hard, pure hard. Every superhero needs their villains, bro. Let's get into this. From Ezekiel to the guy that ate hair,
Beard Hunter.
the beard hunter. He would eat your hair on your beard to gain like what your thoughts. What was that again?
Would get everything from you. Your
Everything.
whole knowledge. He can locate you from it. He
Oh
was
man.
able to fight Cyborg because he knew Cyborg's every move
Mm-hmm.
just by eating that one little piece of hair that had fallen on the floor.
When he went into that sink and he pulled out, I think it was what was it, Niles' hair?
Niles, yeah.
Oh my god, bro.
It was
Anyway,
gross.
one villain I want to highlight, and it's obvious, but we got it. For me though, the great Alan Tudyk, Mr. Nobody, was their first antagonist. This guy had history with Niles. I mean, this guy here was a low. What year was it? 1940s. When he
Yeah.
was a low-level criminal, Brotherhood of Evil, correct? Was he?
Yeah,
associated?
he wanted to join
Wanted
the
to.
Brotherhood of Evil, and
He
he
was-
did join
yeah.
them. He did join them. However,
Yep.
because his plans weren't all that great, they threw him out, and
He
that's
lost
that
his girl, right?
his girl.
Millie?
Yeah, she was gonna show him the robot, which I think it was the robot that they showed towards the end of season 3 that they put Cliff's body in. That robot ends up coming back in the end because when I was rewatching, I'm like, I knew I was gonna see that robot again. But he created that robot and they just didn't take him serious. And that's when his ex-fiance at that point called him, you're just a nobody, and
Yes,
walked away.
and that's what I loved about it. And what I loved about it too, where he was narrating pretty much
And he
the
broke the
series.
fourth wall.
Broke the fourth wall.
He talked to us.
Yes, but once like he was out of the story, that ended obviously. So that's when I felt the weight of the character. That's how I knew how much weight the character had in the show. Because once he was gone, you felt it. Not saying the show was bad, but the fact that when he was narrating it, breaking the fourth wall, it just added that an extra layer of like it's intriguing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this guy is talking to us. He's the villain, but we're getting everything from his point of view. You know what I mean? Great character. I love the actor because he always gives it his all, man. And it's one of those actors that emotes a lot with his face. So like you, kind of like you know what I'm saying? And again, it has history with Niles. Niles was kind of responsible for him turning into Mr. Nobody, right? What's his power level, Joe? Talk to us about Mr. Nobody, his powers, and what is the extent of his superhuman abilities.
He's almost omnipotent. I mean, he does have his flaws,
It
but
reminds you of like the Spot. And if you've seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, like how you can open up into pockets of dimensions and stuff like that. That's even though the parts are a little different, but as far as the characters and their backstories being like just the lowest of the lowest, and all of a sudden they got this huge like power level all of a sudden that could change reality essentially. You know what I mean?
well, because remember, he can go into the white space.
Yes, the white
The white
space.
space in the
He
comic
threw, he
book.
threw, Niles, Dorothy, and Danny the Street.
Well, he
threw him in there.
captured Niles first.
Niles,
Then-
yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he did go in there to catch.
That's what got the group together because they went to get Dorothy once.
and that's the whole
Because
thing.
they didn't give a fuck about Niles anymore by that point. But
No.
Dorothy, they wanted to save her.
Well,
Good
it's
shot,
funny
man.
because now that you mentioned Niles, before I go into my favorite villain, I mean, you never thought of Niles being a villain here, also?
Oh man, it's weird because you get so many different versions of Niles' point of view within the series. You get him at the early on. You get it obviously when you think he's just helping these characters, but then you find out all of their accidents, in a sense, were caused by Niles, right?
Mhm. He put into Cliff's head that he died during a race.
A race.
And then it was because Mr. Nobody's goal, once he had them all together, was he wanted Niles to tell them the truth. And it was that he's the one that created them. All of their accidents were all done because of Niles and his mission to try to find immortality.
Yes, yep.
You know,
Longevity.
he created the Immortus Project and brought them in. Niles's goal was to live one day longer than Dorothy, because Dorothy was also with the powers that he got from, and I'm still trying to figure out what she was when I rewatched it, but it was some type of Cro-Magnon, I'm gonna go with, that Niles ended up hooking up with and creating Dorothy.
Yeah.
But she had some immortality herself because of her descendants. So Niles literally, and they did this in the comics, actually. It was Grant who, because in the original run, he was helping them. But when Grant took over, it was during his run that they said he was the one that caused all your accidents. But
Yeah. Right.
Niles had done a lot of shifty shit. I mean, when he found his friend after he'd been missing, and he purposely walked him over the ice so he can go, he killed his own friend. So Niles is another villain in
Are you
here.
saying to me your favorite villain here is Niles Caulder?
Oh no, no,
Oh, okay. I thought,
by
but
far not.
hold
I
on.
just
Before we
wanted to ask
continue,
you if you yourself. I might know. My question was, he's like Amanda Waller, and you know how Amanda Waller is. I mean, so did you ever yourself, while you're
no,
watching
you're
the
right. No,
series?
no, never. I'll be honest. I never saw him like. I've always saw him as a, these scientists, man. Like, I always saw this guy as someone who would do whatever it takes to get the information needed and to make these things work. Because let's say he found a way how to take Cliff's brain, preserve it with all of his memory, his personality, everything, and put it in his robot. Yeah, the way he went about it was fucked up.
Right. But he created Robot Man because he wanted to see if he can put his brain in a robot and how it would be. Robot Man was a failure. All of them were all failures. He was trying to figure out something he can do for himself, but they were all his test subject. Then he felt a little bad
Yeah, right.
that he
Yeah,
did
he's an
that to
asshole.
them. You know what I mean? So, but ultimately, his whole entire goal was to live. And yes, I get it because he loved his daughter, but he did bad things. That's why he made enemies.
So let's
All
see.
the enemies that came after them were all because Niles fucked them over. It wasn't the other way around. Literally every single one that was after them was because Niles ultimately wanted, his goal
Yeah,
was at the cost of all of them,
yeah.
making him a pretty fucked up villain.
Yeah, a little selfish. I can see that. I can see. I never saw him as a villain until like near the end when everything came together, and especially after we found out he was responsible for everything. But again, I just don't put him on the same level as super villain trying to take over the world. He was
No,
selfish, but he
no.
had his own agendas. Like you said it, he wanted to find out how to put his brain into Robot Man because he wanted to live a day longer than Dorothy,
Yep.
which it came into play at the end as well. So, yeah, to answer your question, I never saw him as a villain, but I will not debate if you say he was a villain. All the evidence is there, bro. It's there. Like, I mean, there are levels to being a hero, and there are levels to being a villain.
Yeah.
That's what's so good about the show. It's not just Shades of Grey, because that's done, boring, been done to death, right? This show is just about human beings and what they're capable of doing, whether it's moral or immoral. Everybody has a reason to do the
Yeah.
things that they do,
Yeah.
and that's what's fucking scary.
My favorite villain actually was one that, going into the series, I already was gonna hate because in the
Oh, the
first
Beard Hunter! I knew it.
no, no, no. But in the first run of the comics, the Doom Patrol were actually killed off because the sales weren't good, and Madame Rouge was part of that.
She was a
So
villain. Yeah.
she was a villain. So when she was introduced, I'm like, oh, it's literally the woman who killed the Doom Patrol in the comic books.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit. And I love her character. I love. I have a thing about accents. To be properly told to fuck off, like the way she does it, like I
Hey,
would.
you say Cliff still has a potty mouth.
Oh, gee. Oh,
No,
I know.
Madame
But there's a
Rouge.
difference though. There's a difference though. That's like Cliff's is like crass. Like hers is like I can get cussed off by her any day. She was my favorite villain, who then morphed into my favorite Doom Patrol character.
Wow, so she did have a great arc though. Like the
She
character
did.
development for Madame Rouge was on
Yeah.
point.
because she came in also trying to find Niles to kill Niles so that way the brain could create the Doom Patrol and
The
take all the credit for it.
Forgot about the brain.
That was the ultimate plan, and then when she got there, there was the flaw that in the time travel, you forget your memories. So she started remembering she had this plan, but then when she started seeing what she was thought of, how horrible she was, especially in the episode when she basically weaponized all of the Sisterhood of the Dada and then got Malcolm killed, which is what made Rita, like, basically it broke her heart. Now they were each other's nemesis. So she came in there. Rita remembered her, but Rouge did not. So Rita's waiting for her to remember this. And when it all comes back, I'd love to see how they're finally face to face, and Rouge has got all her memories. She's like, "Come on, bitch."
The episode with the bug sex. Can you elaborate on that?
No,
There's
not
one
really.
other episode I want to bring up, but that
But-
was some of the weirdest shit I've ever seen, bro.
That
We can't
was
end
the
this
weirdest-
episode without talking about that, bro.
I mean, yes.
No, that was
the,
weird, bro.
the insect, a giant. Well, and they weren't small; they were giant.
They're
A
giant.
giant,
They're
a
like
giant
kaiju level.
cockroach, and kaiju, a giant roach, and a rat.
Oh, and they were attracted to each other. Oh, God.
And they were like they were touching each other, like
stop. All right, I
doing
should have asked.
moves, and they started making out. Yeah, no, that was gross. But if that's the weirdest thing was the butts.
Oh,
Even though I do love
my
the
God,
butts.
the butt patrol. Let me tell you. All right, picture
Bring
this. If you're a fan of Basket Case, Belial, or Geodude, a head with just arms like this and appendages, let's say, and instead of a muff, it's a fucking asshole, and it's just
It's
they
an ass
talk.
with eyes.
and they
And they
talk.
talk.
Grant Morrison obviously was the writer that this series based their work off of,
Yeah,
right?
yes,
Off of
yes.
his work.
Yes.
Flex Metallo, bro. We can't end this without talking about Flex Metallo.
He is another awesome
He
character.
wasn't really a villain, no, but
No.
his episode when he gave everyone an orgasm.
They were like, "Are you feeling anything yet?" No. Are you? How about now? And Jane's like, "Wait, I feel something." Oh yeah, I'm feeling something. What are you all feeling? I'm feeling something. She's like, "Oh, fuck, we're coming!" And you're just Danny the Street started coming everywhere. I mean,
Also, Larry from all people. I'm sorry, man.
Well-
If it sounds ridiculous, it's even worse when you watch it, bro.
well,
It's
and my
so
favorite is that the whole time Cliff's standing there, and Cliff's like, "Oh yeah, oh," and they're going through it, and Jane goes, "Did you fake your orgasm?" And he's like, "I was trying to be part of the group," because remember, he can't feel nothing.
He's got
just a
no
brain.
penis. He's just
Right,
a,
but right, he's just a brain. But yeah, it's like he's saying they're actually faking it. Each muscle has a certain power.
yes, yeah.
So I guess he was trying to when he did that, he was trying to open the portal into the white space.
Yeah.
And what happened
yeah.
was he was one muscle off on which one to flex, and which is why he created that. Rita wanted Flex to give her an orgasm, and he got stuck. And then the sex demon showed up,
Oh, yeah,
who
yeah, yeah.
was gonna give birth, and if the baby cries, it's the end of the world. Meanwhile, sex ghosts are now going all over the place. And again, this is not for kids because you're literally
Oh,
there's
no,
a
no,
ghost,
this
a
show is
woman
not for
on
kids.
all fours, and the guy's like railing her from behind,
Yeah.
and stuff's going on, and they're like,
Listen, man, if Rita Farr wants a kid, come holla at Ricky Grimes, yo. I got you. This cast here was so good, and every character is so different from one another. I was going back and forth between who was my favorite member of Doom Patrol. I got two, but I gotta pick one. Crazy Jane edges out Robot Man as my favorite Doom Patrol
I knew it.
character. Diane Guerrero killed it. 64 personalities. Let's talk about trauma, bro. This is a character that deals with DID, dissociative identity disorder, abused by her dad. Their dad took her favorite doll, threw it down the well, which is very important later on. This character of Crazy Jane, man, has such a traumatic upbringing, a lot of personal trauma. You are the resident expert on this. Let's tell the viewers, if they're not aware, where her story started, so to speak.
Well, so she was being molested by her father, Kay. Kay is the actual
K
who the girl
Chalice.
is.
Yeah.
Kay Chalice. And while she was going through that, all these other personalities were coming in to basically take control of the body to protect Kay.
64 different
All
personalities.
64 of them. Yes.
Defense mechanism. Yeah.
All her defense mechanisms. And then once she escaped the well and went to find a normal life, she met a guy. They fell in love. She moved in with him and he started a corporate job. They're having a party. Well, turns out that he basically invited all his friends for a swingers party. And while they were there, basically the boyfriend, I can't remember his name, told her to do it. You know, this is what we're here for. So she laid there while she watched her boyfriend fucking his buddy's wife while the buddy is fucking her. And you can see as that's going on, the personalities start coming in and out during that time.
Right,
and
right.
Scarlet Harlot jumps in to finish off the job. And Miranda went back into the underground. And that's when all of them said, you were supposed to protect us. And that was not supposed to happen again.
Yeah.
Because she was doing something she didn't want to do, but she loved her boyfriend. And then that's when your girl Jane came in. Which, mind you, though, out of all of them, doesn't really have a power.
She is powerless because the other personalities, at least most of them or all of them, you would know more. They all have a superhuman ability. And
Yeah.
why is that?
Those were all infused because of Niles.
Your boy Niles.
Yep.
So that where Niles come into the picture in Jane's life. She is a character that everyone, if as hard as it was for her to get along with people, everyone somehow gravitated towards her for everything. I don't know why, but that's how it was, and it paid off at the end because she became a very valuable member of the group. And when she decided, nah, I'm gonna do this for me now, and she got with Space Case. Yeah, so I like that she found happiness in her closure. I think even in death, because not everyone made it out in the end. We'll get to that in the closing part, but everyone got to the point where they were content and they were satisfied and they were happy with where they ended up at. So good shit. All right, brother, it is that time to close this out. We could be here for a lot longer because the series, I mean, there's so many characters we didn't even talk about or touch upon, but we just give you the basics because we don't want to give you everything. Trust me, guys, if you are a horror fan and you're not into comic book stuff, forget the comic book stuff. Leave it to the side. This isn't a comic book story.
No.
This story, when I said it's horror, and so did Joe, this story is horror in a sense where these characters go through real life issues we all go through, man. And everyday life is a horror story, man. So that's good, man. We're gonna rate it out. Joe, I'm gonna go with you first. Your closing thoughts, anything else you want to say, and also give the viewers our rating scale for the Comic Book Horror Show and how that will factor into this episode.
All right. So as far as the ratings, it is 1 out of 4, Epsilon, Beta, Alpha, and Omega. Omega being the highest. As far as closing thoughts, one thing I love that you mentioned it earlier, the theme song. I every time I watched it, I just listened to the theme song.
Now, I'm one that always skips the themes. Usually, unless it's Game of Thrones, I always listen to that. But this is another one. I never skip it, bro.
No.
Never.
And what I loved about it was
it's so depressing. I love it.
Well, so many variations were used throughout the series. I didn't notice that the first time I watched it. The second time, in battle moments, they had a little bit more sped up version of it. During some, dramatic or horror moments, they slowed it down.
Well, let's talk about the acapella one with the musical episode. Which, hey, let me say something real quick. There is a musical episode in this series. If that's not your thing, now it was bold and I respected it. It's not my bag, but I think it came together beautifully. That was one of my best episodes in that season. And I texted you. I was like, is this whole episode going to be a musical? You're like, yeah, I think so. I'm like, oh god, can I skip it? I hate this. But as
No,
I
it's part
kept
of the
watching,
story.
though, it is part of the story. It made sense, and I love that they just
Yeah.
didn't put it in there. I wish it was. I'm not a musical guy, but I think Madame Rouge's lyrics definitely highlighted that. But yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, for sure. But the other part that I liked was that one of the runs that introduced some of the characters was crawling out of the wreckage, and it was one of the T-shirts that Cliff had on.
Another thing,
And
if you notice, Cliff's shirts are always punk bands for
oh
the most
yeah,
part, metal
but
and
this
punk
one,
bands.
but this one was the title of one of Grant Morris's best story
Oh,
arcs,
dope.
crawling from the wreckage. And when I saw it on the shirt, I got that nerd boner
You would
because
catch
it's
that.
something I
I wouldn't
recognize. Oh
catch
yeah,
that.
no, I totally was just like I was so pumped to have seen it because they're throwing in there just the homage to where it came from.
Mhm.
I love the series from beginning to end. Rewatched it, as I said, this whole entire week, binged it again. This is definitely an omega for me. The way that the series ended, you said that they all got their happy endings, but unfortunately, Rita was not one of the ones that got her immortality back. So I cried when she died. The funeral was one of the saddest, but yes, most hysterical thing I have ever seen on TV.
What's that smell, Joe?
What did was it
Burning
like
rubber.
burning rubber? Well, and the best was when she's because she told them that they have to burn my body. Please bring everybody bring something that makes you think of me.
Oh my
And
god.
and what
Most of
was
it
I
was
think
liquor.
two I think Jane wait Jane
It,
was the mirror.
it
Hold
was
on.
Rouge and
So I'm trying
Rouge
there.
and Larry. They brought liquor.
Yeah. So the mirror, Robot Man had the compact mirror. He goes, "Because you're always looking at yourself," and she's like, "All right, well,
Oh wait, he had it. I thought
you're
that was Jane. Oh, he had the mirror.
yeah. Well, no, he had the compact one,
Yeah.
and so then it was Larry's turn, and no, was it Larry?
No,
Anyway,
Larry and Jane were the last two. She was like, I hope you
okay.
guys got something
So
better
then
too.
Rouge went, and Rouge had the martini, and she explained it just how she liked it. She's like, yes, but all right, well, maybe the two who have known me the longest, and then Jane just puts her head down and pulls out the mirror.
Yeah, it was
And
Jason.
then
Yeah.
fucking Larry pulls out the whole bottle. She's
Bottle.
like, great, let's just move along from
This
this.
Cyborg oh man, Victor had he said how she loved bees, so he gave her a little jar of honey.
Oh yeah. It's like you're sitting there like these people are so okay, so I'm a vain drunk. This is how you guys but then when when they lit her up, she caught on fire and
Oh
Rouge
my
goes,
god.
it's probably all the alcohol.
All right, Jane and Rouge and Cyborg are the only three that lived, right?
Well, Larry, he went up in space with Mr.
Yeah,
104.
but don't forget, Mr. 104 was, remember, he was gonna blow up. So he took him
Yes.
to space to blow up safely so they could go off together.
Yes.
So he's
I guess
gone.
he did
Larry's
die.
gone. So even
Yeah.
if it didn't happen here, it was gonna happen. So
Yeah, it's gonna happen up there. You're right.
yeah.
So yeah, so just Rouge.
Cool,
Rouge.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Rouge probably had like everyone had okay, Jane found happiness. She's got a companion now. Larry's no more pain for Larry. We'll get into Robot Man, but of course we know about Rita. But Madame Rouge was the only one that went out fucking swinging. Her story concluded with her going out fighting. That's what
Yeah.
not her life, but her story arc. So I mentioned Crazy Jane being my number one, but I said Cliff Steele was my close second. I think Brendan Fraser was just, I mean, the voice acting, but the fact that Robot Man he's a robot. He's got a static expression baked into his makeup. This motherfucker emoted so much, right? What you could tell whenever he was sad or in pain or ecstatic, just
Yeah.
by the actor and the way they lit up the eyes. With like, oh my god,
They actually showed emotion through the robotic
I
eyes.
couldn't believe it,
And
and that's
anger.
exactly. And I loved when Brendan Fraser got to act out parts as himself and not Robot Man, like during the musical and the flashbacks. I root for the guy, and even when I see Larry, Matt Bomer, when he gets to play himself. not as much as Robot Man did, but he was in certain scenes. I'm like, oh wow, it's so weird seeing this guy
Yeah.
as is. So that's pretty cool. This is an Omega for me. This show was so enjoyable. Like I said, it's so dark, but at the same time, it didn't take itself too seriously because it needed that just right amount of levity to take it to that next level.
Yep.
Because this show could make you laugh, and like you said, it could make you cry. And the only time I got choked up literally in the show was the very last scene, the very last shot, because we went through 4 seasons with these characters, and the fact that they gave Cliff the last scene in this series when he saw Rory, his grandson, he saw his life. That was the trinket that Immortus gave to Cliff and said, you will know what it is when the time is right, essentially.
Yeah.
And after his Parkinson started getting really bad and his arm locks up, he takes a glance at this trinket, this little medallion hanging on. He put it on the rearview mirror and he saw his grandson's life. He got to see his entire life. And what did he see? He saw himself, essentially.
Yep.
And his last was, you know what? All right, I'm home. And he shuts down.
Yep.
His eyes go blank. He shuts down. Show's over. Holy shit. That gave me right now, the hairs at the back of my neck stand up thinking about that shot. Just between the direction, the acting, the dialogue, just everything, the way it was built up to that moment, and that's the final shot of the series was bold. I give him a lot of credit for going out that way. And it was sad,
Agreed.
man. And I was choked up. I was choked up. It's a human story, man, that everyone can relate to. Everyone goes through mental health issues. People get sick, or you see loved ones sick. You see people depressed, lonely. You see that, you see friends and family going through shit that they don't even tell you about, but you know something's wrong.
Yep.
These are those characters, man, and I love it. This show was fucking awesome. Omega,
Yep.
if you haven't seen it, it's on Max. 4 seasons. Give it a shout. Joe the Psychologist. Anything else you got to add to this?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
I'm good. Thank you, sir. Thank you, viewers. I'm Ricky Grimes.
And we are out.